Project Athia was first revealed in 2020 at E3, and the stunning visuals and gameplay had both my husband and I like. We were so pumped for this game that truly looked like the future of the next-gen experience. So when cross-gen experiences like God of War Ragnarok and Horizon Forbidden West blew us away with their cinematic storytelling, amazing casting, and diverse lush landscapes, imagine our surprise when Forspoken, a game solely developed for the PS5, launched and looked like this. Luminous, we're not angry.
I'm just disappointed.
Forspoken is an action RPG made in tandem by Japanese studio Luminous, produced by Square, and with Western writers, most notably Gary Whitta and Amy Hedig. These two had a slew of successful titles under their belts, including writing credits on Prey, Uncharted, and Jak and Daxter, and major screenwriting experience like The Book of Eli and Rogue One, so it was truly shocking to go through the game and have absolutely no interest in the story at all. That's not to say there weren't a few genuinely funny parts, but until the last few hours of our time in Athia, we had zero motivation to interact with the world or its characters. So we'll say the same thing to Luminous we say to our children.
All right.
Okay.
Go to your room.
What? Welcome to WifedUp Reviews, where we tell you whether a game is worth playing in the precious me time you have between changing diapers and taming tantrums. A lot of the blame can be placed on Frey herself as a character, and her complete lack of growth for the first 10 hours of the game. Frey is like Tony Stark in the first 15 minutes of Iron Man. You know, before he turns over a new leaf and uses his power and wealth to start helping people. That's Frey. For 10 hours, she has a complete lack of empathy for others in a way that seems so synonymous with how writers think strong women need to be portrayed nowadays. She seems to be suffering from an acute case of Galadriel sickness.
There's a tempest in me!
Every single thing Frey does in Athia is self-motivated.
I don't give. Just leave me alone.
This is constantly driven home by Frey herself again and again, repeating that she doesn't care about anyone else.
Apple, but this is where your heart goes. I'm sick of killing myself for everybody else.
I just wanted to drop a quick note to modern storytellers. Not all black characters have to be crass, selfish, and angry. We need more characters like Miles Morales. Characters who actually have a heart, multifaceted personality, and deep bonds with family. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox now. Back to the video.
In the beginning, we really empathize with her situation before Frey gets isekai'd by a magical cuff. She's an orphaned, homeless thief with no one in her corner but her cat. She's in debt to some very generic, badly voiced gangsters and in trouble with the law yet again. The showrunners continuously use this tragic backstory to explain why Frey treats everyone else like garbage. This story has a lot in common with a Chicago street after a snowplow has finished its route. Holes everywhere. She just saved up enough money from her petty thievery to get away from New York when her apartment is set on fire by those same gangsters. She for some reason leaves the bag of money that's literally at her feet to go find her cat and loses everything. With nothing to lose, she's whooshed to Athia. After finding a bracelet in a library, an abandoned apartment, it's unclear. The basic premise is that after a war, Athia is ruled by the four Tantas for some period of time, and then they went crazy and the world broke. The break, that's literally what Frey calls it, is this blue smog that turns people into zombies, and Frey has to stop the Tantas from spreading the blue fog across humanity's last bastion, Sepal, before it's too late. The premise is simple enough, but the problem is they don't ever elaborate more. The majority of interesting lore is hidden in walls of text and are rarely explored in dialogue. Side quests feel like empty, useless tasks. None of the people in the world have any clue what's going on, so talking to the townsfolk is pointless. And even the cuff who brought you here just gives you vague responses when you ask any questions about the world or his own origins.
Question. I've been wondering that myself.
Frey never questions any of this and is simply set on going back to New York, insisting that she's a New Yorker at heart at one point in the game.
But I am a New Yorker through and through.
Even though she was just planning her escape from New York a few hours prior, her outright refusal to participate in anything that isn't a means to that end takes her from reluctant hero to outright unpleasant and unlikable. The disjointed story is only emphasized by the first few hours of the game, which are just downright painful to play through. Constant cutscenes with no cinematography or camera work, a stealth section when stealth isn't even a game mechanic, and long conversations with your cuff while you are rooted in place. Ambient dialogue that fleshes out your adventure as you explore is a pretty standard thing in open world games now, but the only banter worth listening to forces you to remain in one spot. The actual ambient dialogue is so annoying and repetitive that the developer had to allow players to turn it off completely. I've been to a barbershop the day before prom and have still never seen so many fades to black. Every single cutscene fades to black. I think we must have spent a solid 20 minutes of our playtime just staring at a black screen. For a console exclusive on a console that literally marketed itself to have minimal need for loading screens or transition effects, it's just a terrible design choice. These transitions make the game feel unpolished and honestly unfinished. It's constantly taking you out of a world that's already very difficult to get immersed in and makes the story a slog to get through. If you can get through the endless cutscenes and fades to black, you'll be able to experience a part of the game that we actually liked, exploring the open world. The combat and movement in Forspoken are probably the least broken part of the game. There is a pretty steep learning curve, but in the moments it all comes together, it can actually be pretty fun. However, and I think this goes back to all those pacing issues, you're stuck playing with the same few spells for about the first 6 hours of the game. That was about half of our playtime. Forspoken should feel more like Avatar: The Last Airbender, but ends up giving M. Night Shyamalan instead. Forspoken eventually rewards your suffering with our absolute favorite spell in the game, a massive flaming sword. It's just a shame that it takes so long to unlock this ability. And of course, the other major selling point is the parkour mechanic. It gets you across Athia quickly and is extremely satisfying to sprint across flying boulders or spring up a steep cliff wall. It also works as a sort of auto dodge and inspires and rewards player movement in combat. That is, once again, when it works. At times, you're sprinting across a battlefield and Frey gets stuck on a 6-inch lip on the ground or a dead body, and you start feeling like this.
Parkour!
Which brings us to the overall graphical fidelity of the game. Shockwaves moved through the entire internet after the PC requirements for Forspoken were released. And after playing the game, I'm still not sure why the requirements are so high. Maybe the game is just poorly optimized, because the level of detail just doesn't seem to warrant the amount of power it takes to run the game. There are portions of Athia's world that are pretty to look at, but the majority of its overworld is empty and lifeless. The NPCs either have no facial expressions or look like, well, this. And Frey herself sometimes looks like this, but mostly looks like this. I feel like Luminous was aware of how bad their faces looked because the majority of the time in the game is spent looking at Frey's back, including in dialogue-heavy scenes, with a static camera. It's probably because we've been spoiled by some truly breathtaking story-driven games in the last couple of years that you forget what you have until it's gone. What does look good are the spells. Like, wow, is the combat in this game impressive to look at. Both my husband and I enjoyed the backseat gaming experience more than playing the game ourselves. The large-scale boss fights are particularly stunning and dynamic and are just so visually satisfying to watch. Music is mediocre and uninspired, but this is more of the gameplay and narrative's fault than the music itself. There are very few scenes to get truly invested in, so when the music rises, it only makes the noise more intense instead of the action. The voice acting in this game is all over the spectrum. Ella Balinska, the actress behind Frey, gives a great performance, but the rest of the voice work is a mixed bag. If you have limited time like we do, we can't in good conscience recommend Forspoken. It's also worth noting that it only took us about 13 hours to get through the entire campaign and some of the side content, a number that makes it difficult to swallow a steep $70 price tag. Forspoken could have set a new bar for what it means to be a modern fantasy action RPG. The ideas and mechanics in the game are truly great, it's just the poor execution that stops the IP from cementing itself in video game history. In fact, I think the game says it best itself.
I can do so much more with my life. I'm a smart girl with a bright future.
I was going to say you have so much anger and resentment in you, I'm not sure you'll ever amount to anything at all.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Please let us know what you thought about Forspoken in the comments below, and like and subscribe. We'd also like to give a special shout out to our new friend, Crawlin' a Goat, who was with us for the last 5 hours of our Forspoken journey on Twitch. It wouldn't have been the same without you.